Hey, welcome to one of the very first parts of our onboarding that you're going to be doing as a new contract coach. You'll see on the screen what I have loaded up here is what we lovingly refer to as Coachbase. You should have gotten an invitation into our QuickBase app kind of right away in your new email address for Better Lesson. We call it Coachbase because it's what holds all of our coach records, our meeting records, and all of our kind of coach internal communications. Right now, you can see it's under construction. This should approximate or resemble the page that you see when you log in. What we're going to do for this activity is we're going to click here on this Coaches tab. And so if you're doing this after Coachbase has been updated and more functionality has rolled out, you may have to go looking for this coach table. But it will still be here. This will actually be the place that you could come back to update this information throughout the year as well. So when I click on that coaches table, I actually see a list of the full-time and contract coaches at Better Lesson. You can see that there are a variety of coaches right now. Anybody who has their name next to them in the coach user field is somebody who coached for us last year, whether they were a contract or a full-time coach. Those of you who don't have a coach user populated yet, those will probably actually be populated before you're accessing this page. When I'm logged in as me, just as a coach, you'll notice that next to everybody's name is a little eyeball. And so that means that I can actually click on that eyeball. I could learn about my colleagues, but I only have this little pencil next to my own name because I'm only able to edit my own records. I can actually go up here and click End Test and go back to being in my own role so that I can demonstrate some things on kind of a test user account. That'll mean that we start to see some different things on the screen, and so just don't be concerned with the way it now looks different than your screen does. So I'm going to go into this Martha Buck user. Martha is somebody that you most likely will get to know during your time at Better Lesson. She does a lot of work for us in terms of maintaining our data systems, but also helping us to have our product and coordinate our work together. So if you were to click on the edit button for yourself, it should look something like this. You should see your first name, your last name, your email. You should see that you're a contract coach, and you should see a coach username there. In the event that either your first name or your last name is not the name that you prefer to be referred to or called, you should just let us know that. We've done our best if we know that you go by a middle name or we know that you go by a nickname to actually update that right away. But that is something that we can change so that any communication that's being sent that's using those fields uses the name that you prefer. So for this activity, this onboarding activity, you're going to actually update your Wheelhouse and you're going to update your time availability. So your Wheelhouse, you'll notice that during the hire process, you filled out a Wheelhouse. This is kind of what your Wheelhouse looks like. This is my Wheelhouse. You'll notice that my Wheelhouse has Wheelhouse for all of science, and it has a lot of other areas of ZPD. My Wheelhouse last year actually had more Wheelhouse categories, but I have gotten to the point where I'm really focused on working. I'm happy to work with any teacher, but focused on working with science teachers and then working with coaches and administrators, which you'll notice this is where it looks a little bit different than the Wheelhouse that you filled out. You were able to self-select into these other categories. These 4 categories down here that are gray are categories that we actually this year will begin to have certifications for. But hopefully you have access still to your old Wheelhouse that you filled out as hiring. We've used that to make some decisions, but we actually are going to let you reload that information directly into Coachbase. And so we can see if we could go back to my Wheelhouse, I could pull them up in separate windows and load it straight in. But I wanted to actually, as I fill in that information here, tell you a little bit about how we use the information and encourage you to kind of thoughtfully update as you really get ready to be matched with teachers. So the purpose of a Wheelhouse is for us to match you with teachers that you'll feel most comfortable coaching. And I don't want to imply that we never stretch, because we do stretch, but there are some stretches that feel more comfortable than others. And so you saw in my Wheelhouse that I have marked as Wheelhouse all of science. Now, the reason for that is that when I was teaching, I was a high school science teacher. When I was at the university, I was researching in middle school science classrooms. And then when I left the university, I worked for the state and I supported science teachers from K through 12. So I came to Better Lesson fairly comfortable with supporting teachers across that whole grade range with science content. I also have spent a good amount of time supporting pre-K and working with pre-K teachers. And so I'm gonna actually mark all of pre-K as my ZPD. I feel pretty comfortable working with math teachers. I actually don't prefer them as my first choice of teachers to work with. And so I'm gonna mark as ZPD all of K-12 math as an area that I'm happy to be matched with. I don't feel negatively at all about being matched with that. So the difference then between, if I look at this 9-12 grade band, and I just look at math, science, and ELA for myself as an example, each of these has the 3 options. I can either have a teacher in that category in my wheelhouse, in my ZPD, or not listed for me at all. When a new teacher comes in and we're looking to make a coach match for that teacher, this is one of the factors that we consider. The very first list that the person making the match will see is a list of people who have that teacher listed in their wheelhouse. That list will be a little bit modified based on some other factors like whether you're available at the right time, etc., whether you have space left in your schedule. But the very first list they see will be wheelhouse coaches that have those other factors available or possible. In the event that there isn't a coach on that list that actually matches and is available, they'll now populate a ZPD list. And so if I want to always be all those other factors aside, I always want to be on the list for a teacher like that. I want to make sure that's in my wheelhouse. So let's say I really actually have decided that I love working with 3-5 and 6-8 art and music teachers. It's really fun for me. I want to show up on the list whenever one of those teachers comes along. I'm going to put that on my wheelhouse. If I say, I'm not quite as excited about working with 9-12 art and music teachers, it feels a little bit out of my range, but if nobody else was available, I'd be happy to take that teacher. Now I'm going to mark that in my ZPD. If I say, I'm not at all comfortable though working with the K2 art and music. I taught high school. I have this passion around art and music, but K2 is a little bit far out of my range. I'm going to just leave that blank. Now I won't show up on those lists. Now, of course, there are going to be times when we get in a K2 art and music teacher and there's not anybody with that wheelhouse available and there's not anybody with that ZPD available. Those are the times where we might be asked to stretch, but we're only going to be asked to do that when there's just not somebody who had that wheelhouse or ZPD available. Hopefully that context helps you as you think about transferring the information you shared during hiring into Coachbase to really make clear who you want to be matched with this year. Now, you're going to have access to edit and update this throughout the year. And so let's say I put 9-12 math in my ZPD and I get matched with a 9-12 math teacher and it actually feels like more of a stretch than I'm ready for. I could come in here and turn that off and I'm not going to be matched in the future with more teachers in that area unless nobody else was available. Or if I have these 3-5 art teachers or 6-8 art teachers, they come in and it feels like a great fit, I can always come in and update this and say, actually, I feel totally comfortable now going K through 12. So I'm going to be able to make those changes throughout the year. When I'm done filling out my wheelhouse, I'm going to hit save and close, and that'll save everything. But before I do that, I want to take a minute and talk about time availability. Now, you'll notice here, I'm going to say this now, I'm going to say it a few times, all times are in Eastern time. It's because Better Lesson is in Eastern time. I'm not in Eastern time. I live in Montana. I'm in Mountain time. So I'm going to add 2 hours in my mind from my own time into this chart so that I'm converting essentially to Eastern time. So what this does, it allows me to say, I am not available at 12 a.m. I don't want to coach at that time. I am not available at 1 a.m. I don't want to coach at that time. 1 a.m. is 11 o'clock at night for me. 10, 11 o'clock at night, I don't want to coach then. I'm going to go all the way through. The earliest I really want to have myself matched with teachers is 8 a.m. my time. So I'm going to go all the way through and mark is not available up through 9 a.m. I'm going to start saying, yes, I'm available at 10 a.m. because I'm fine with taking on a teacher who wants to meet starting at 8 a.m. my time, 10 a.m. Eastern. I'm going to continue to mark available all through the daytime because I'm happy to be matched with teachers all the way up until 6 p.m. I don't really want to be matched with a teacher that's going to want to start their meeting after 5 o'clock my time. That my working hours are from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. So that's what I'm going to mark as available. Now, some of you are going to have really different availability than me, right? You might be in a different time zone. You might be working during those hours that I just marked as available, and you want to coach from 5 p.m. on your time. It's really up to you what you mark as available. I want to be really clear, though. You can mark as many hours as you want available on this chart. We will still only match you with enough teachers to go up to the number of hours that you said you wanted to work. So if you say, actually, yeah, I'm happy to coach anytime from 8 to 5, my time zone, or whatever that is in Eastern time, and you have also said you only want to work 10 hours a week, we're not going to fill you up from 8 to 5 every day. We're only going to give you 10 hours of coaching. But we're not going to limit ourselves in terms of holding those to a very specific set of hours unless you tell us that here. Now, I know one of the questions you're going to ask is you're going to say, I want to work from 3 to 5 on Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and that's it. So what do I do? Well, you put 3 to 5 here. We're not yet matching based on day of the week preference. We're just matching based on time preference. And so if a teacher has said they can meet from 3 to 5, and you've said you can meet from 3 to 5, that's going to be considered a match. Now, you might talk to that teacher, and the teacher is like, well, I can only meet on Tuesday and Friday. And you say, I can only meet on Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. That's fine. We can go back and change that match. We think that that's going to happen a small enough percentage of the time that it's easier to just match based on time than to try and add that extra dimension of day of the week as well. Now, there is this availability weekends that I accidentally put a yes on. Some of you have said, can I coach on the weekends? So if you want to coach on the weekends, you're going to mark yes there. Teachers are being asked that same question. In the event that we find teachers who say, I want to meet on the weekend, you're going to be the best person to be matched with that teacher because many of our full-time coaches are not interested in coaching on the weekend. So now that I've updated my Wheelhouse, I've updated my time, I'm going to hit save and close. Now all of that information is held in Coachbase in a place where everybody who needs it can access it. I can go back at any time and click this edit button again and say, oh, you know what? I told you that I was available to meet with teachers from 3 to 5, but you know what I found out is that my 5 o'clocks are full. I actually never have time slots at 5 anymore, so I'm going to go in and change that so I don't get any new matches that are at 5. And so you can keep this updated as your own schedule shifts throughout the year. It's not, of course, going to change backwards for matches that were made in the fall if you make a change in December, but it will mean that if you update it at any point, you will not be matched going forwards with people who were outside of that wheelhouse or outside of your time without somebody checking with you to see if a match is possible. Hopefully this has been a useful video for you in terms of getting your Wheelhouse and your availability updated. We really look forward to pairing you with teachers, and we're so grateful that you are taking the time to get this information updated for us.